Hello viewers, we welcome back to SaharaTV live from New York City, and my name is once again Omoyele Showore, and I'll be continuing today's broadcast by interviewing another notable scholar to talk about the situation of the militarization of Africa. And I have via Skype today Professor Horace Campbell, who is a noted peace and justice international scholar. He's a professor of African American Studies and Political Science at Syracuse University in Syracuse, New York. And for your information, I have to let you know that Professor Campbell has a new book coming out, actually. It's called Global NATO and the Catastrophic Failure in Libya. As you know, we were talking to Milton Alimadi a little while ago as to what happened in Libya. And if you read that book, which is coming up March 11, I suspect, you will find out exactly what happened there. But today, we have a different issue to deal with, which is militarization of, the intervention of the neo-colonial forces in Africa, especially with regards to Mali. Hello, Professor Horace Campbell.
Thank you for inviting me once more to Sahara TV. And before we continue, let me send my congratulations to the people of Nigeria for winning the Africa Cup of Nations soccer tournament, and hope that the cultural struggles in Africa will increase our capability of dealing with those who are destabilizing Africa.
Well, thank you very much. We are all excited here also at SaharaTV regarding that particular victory, except that, after we win the World Cup, our condition remains the same. The African Cup.
Well, this is why the cultural, intellectual, ideological, and political struggles are so important to uplift the confidence of our people, especially the young people. Just this week, Wole Soyinka was giving a speech at the African Film Festival in Ouagadougou, and he was using the same theme about how is it after victories like bringing out very good films, how is it we can move towards capturing African creativity, African wisdom, African ideas. How can we build the confidence of our young people so that they do not get sidetracked by those who deceive them under the banner of religion or under the banner of greed from Western forces?
Thank you. I want to ask you quickly, Professor, to just kind of move your microphone away from anything that could be rubbing against it, so that we can hear you loud and clear. As you know, people pay a lot of attention to you when we have you on this show. I want to thank you once again for coming back. As you have talked about the forces, and I want to talk about them now. Last time we spoke, you said that Africans should be allowed to deal with African problems. But we also have heard a lot of reasons for intervention of, say, French colonial forces in Africa, as to one, due to the fact that Africans don't themselves have enough logistical power to deploy forces on time and confront African issues as they should. And of course, there are other things with regards to, protecting their friends in power in different parts of Africa. So Africa is generally seen as a powerless continent. African-based continental and national bodies are seen as generally incapable. As we also read recently that even Nigerian forces that were deployed to Mali had to be begging for food from the populace, which is kind of disgraceful. What do you have to say to that? What do you have to say to the fact that Africans have not been able to get their acts together? I'm talking about African leaders now, to make this kind of intervention happen as quickly as it should.
Let us separate these matters. First, the issue of Mali and the destruction in Mali is happening to the people of Mali, the people of West Africa, the people of Africa, but it's not simply an African problem. It's a problem for humanity. And therefore, this is not something that the world should stand by. And that is why there was a United Nations resolution to mandate ECOWAS to intervene to stop the jihadists, those radicals who manipulate the ideas of Islam in order to create chaos in Africa. So let us separate the matter whether this is an African problem. It's a problem for the international community, but it's a problem where the leadership should be taken by Africans, especially ECOWAS and the African Union. But we must note that there was no mandate from the United Nations for France to go into Mali. The second point that you raised was about African leadership. We cannot speak about African leadership in a void because the African leaders who were committed to the independence, the unity, and peace in Africa, they have all been killed. They've been killed or overthrown. When we had committed leadership in Southern Africa, a country such as Tanzania, on its own, withstood apartheid and all of the support from the West, so that once the Tanzanian people were mobilized and organized, the Tanzanian army could support the freedom fighters in Mozambique, Angola, Zimbabwe, Namibia, and South Africa. So what we're speaking about is not just leadership, we need committed leadership. And what we have seen in Somalia, in Kenya, in Uganda, is that Africa has been set back over 20 years in the case of Somalia. In many cases, like the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Africa has been set back 50 years, 52 years since the killing of Patrice Lumumba. Now, in this specific case of Nigeria, we need to get clear mobilization, clear education, clear politicization of the youth so that we have a committed society where the resources of Nigeria go to transform Nigeria to build the capabilities for a better quality of life. Nigeria cannot intervene and support the people of Mali when inside of Nigeria, the Nigerian people themselves feel oppressed and exploited, marginalized without clean running water, without electricity, without health care, without proper educational facilities and proper cultural facilities. So when we speak about the need for committed leadership, the committed leadership starts with us. We have many committed leaders in Nigeria. I can mention three, two of them who have passed. One was fellow one, Ransom Kuti, who was a committed cultural leader in Africa, and his example is one for many young people. Then we have another young person who passed away. We buried him in Funtua, Tajuddin Abdul Rahim, a young man who spent all of his life working for the unity and emancipation of Africa. He worked in Uganda, he worked in Kenya, he worked all over the world for African liberation. And then we have people like Escotoyo. And then we have those African women in Nigeria who want peace. What we have to do now is to know that we are in a new milestone. Some people use milestone in Arabic and the Quran to talk about jihad. The milestone we are talking about is for the unification of the peoples of Africa to the point where France cannot come in to manipulate the political conditions in a state like Mali and Niger to have a state to set back Africa for another 20 years.
Let me ask, this is amazing what you said. In view of the fact that of all the former colonial masters, it seems like France is the one that did not let go very much of the umbilical cords of their former colonies. Do you think that something needs to be done more drastically to resolve the issue of France's hold on its former colonies and by extension, Africa? Because not only are they, supporting dictators in former colonies, they are helping in some cases to even create friction and destabilize neighboring countries, as we had with regards to Bakassi in Cameroon and Nigeria and the role they play. What do Africans do now, forget about the leaders, to break away this cycle of control and oppression and manipulation and strangleholds on the jugular of African people's sovereignty and freedom to control their wealth and resources and their dignity?
Well, this is an issue where we will have to be concentrating our efforts so that we work towards the full unification of Africa with one currency, one central bank, and one monetary system. France is a weak European state that without its ability to manipulate, divide, and exploit Africa, France would be as important as Austria is today in world politics. The grandeur and the political, economic image of France in the world today is dependent on its ability to confuse some Africans that is to become civilized, they must become French. We have those Africans in Cote d'Ivoire, we have those Africans in Gabon, in Congo, in Senegal, not so much in Senegal, in Mali, and especially in countries like Cameroon, where France helped to kill the genuine freedom fighters so that they could have puppet governments. Now, France is in the midst of an economic crisis. This financial crisis of capitalism in Europe, which we have seen is leading to austerity among the European people, means that France does not have the economic and financial capabilities to carry out the kind of intervention that they carried out in Mali. And that is why you've seen in the past 2 months, since February 12th, France has been able to mobilize the English and the Germans and other sections of the European Union to come in to support the French intervention, because this is a plan for a long-term occupation of the Sahara, using Niger as the base and to destabilize North and West Africa the way that Eastern Africa was destabilized for the past 20 years. Now, the situation in Somalia is being solved by the intervention of African forces in Somalia, and by the fact that Somalia is now going to be integrated in September in the East African community. We need a similar level of unity in West Africa. Africans, especially Nigerian diplomats, Nigerian scholars, Nigerian politicians, Nigerian bankers, need to put pressure on the United States of America that they do not finance the French military intervention in Mali. France cannot afford this intervention in Mali, and it requires the mobilization of the United States Africa Command and the militarization of Africa by the neoconservatives in the United States. So SaharaTV has a job to do to intensify its work among Africans, that they must write to their in the United States that they should dismantle AFRICOM, because France is hoping it can latch on to AFRICOM, the U.S. Africa Command, to be able to finance its long-term deployment in Mali. This is something that needs political, military, economic, and propaganda organizing on the part of Africans for France to leave Mali, and for us to have a clear plan of how to isolate the jihadists and those who are Islamic extremists who are being manipulated by Western intelligence agencies to keep the Sahara region unstable so that Africa cannot be united.
How do we do this, Professor? How do Africans, isolate and fight to also free themselves, by the way, from the jihadists, because they are as deadly as the colonialists in terms of operation and tough and control of violence against Africans who do not, both who sometimes subscribe to the ideology and those who do not, are all caught up in the destruction that accompanies their mode of operation?
Well, the work to isolate the jihadists is not a short-term work, and it's not easy. But first, we must recognize how are they sustained? What is the source of the financial, the logistical, and military support of the jihadists? Where did they come from? This so-called Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, is this a real organization? Or was this something created out of Western intelligence agencies and out of the military and intelligence agencies of repressive regimes? If we get to the bottom of that, and that is why we need to put pressure on the United States of America, because we know that this thing that was called Al-Qaeda, that was supposed to have been started in Afghanistan, was the financing of extremists by the Central Intelligence Agency and the United States to fight the Soviets. Now, this so-called Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, we are told that many of them are veterans of the Afghan war against the Soviets. If you are able to trace these so-called veterans who started fighting in Afghanistan in the 1980s, many of them are over 50 years old now. What France and the CIA is doing is to seek to create the conditions to build a new group of jihadists and to finance them through the Wahhabis in Qatar, in the Emirates, and in Saudi Arabia. So what do? We need to isolate and expose the Central Intelligence Agencies, the work of the United States Africa Command, in the same way that we did the work in the 1960s to expose the alliance between the CIA and the apartheid regime. The alliance between private military contractors, Western military agencies, and the conservative Wahhabis in the Middle East must be exposed. So we cannot have private military contractors going to Nigeria to tell the Nigerians, we're trying to help you fight Boko Haram, when the same private military contractors are working with the Wahhabis in Qatar, in Kuwait, in Saudi Arabia, in other parts of the Emirates. So Sahara TV needs to be able to mobilize constituencies of West Africans in Mali, Senegal, Ivory Coast, Ghana, and Nigeria itself, so that the kind of mobilization that went on in Southern Africa about apartheid can go on in West Africa today. This is going to be a prolonged struggle. It is not primarily a military struggle. It's a political, ideological struggle which will be enhanced by cooperation with our friends. And we need to tell forces such as those in China, those in Brazil, those in India, they cannot stand on the sideline when Africans are organizing against jihadis.
Finally, this is typically an unrelated question, but I'd like to ask you regardless. Recently, Sahara Reporters, which is the sister news agency of SaharaTV, found and exposed how an American pop star, Beyonce, was paid $1 million from poverty alleviation funds from the state of Bayelsa when now President Goodluck Jonathan was governor there in 2006. Here is an American superstar taking money meant for poverty alleviation from people who have no drinking water, no school, no hospitals, no drugs. Professor, what do you have to say about this, especially the kind of alliance too between our movie stars, our musicians who go to Africa, even sometimes so-called human rights activists who go, from the Americas, the U.S., and go collaborate, take money meant for the poor, and help launder those money or mismanage or misappropriate them through some kind of phony entertainment business or lobbying, as the case may be. What do you have to say to this?
You cannot call Beyonce a phony entertainment business. Beyonce is someone who's looked up to by young people, and Beyonce is a talented performer who has something to contribute. What we have to do is Sahara TV must go and make an appointment with Beyonce and with Jay-Z. Jay-Z is an entrepreneur in New York City, and you need to sit down with Beyonce and Jay-Z and to sit with them to say that Sahara TV wants to explain what you get into if you align with certain governments. I can draw an example of more than 30 years ago. The conservative government of Gabon invited Bob Marley. You do not criticize Bob Marley to go to make a concert in Gabon. What you do is you provide the information to Bob Marley to say, this is the nature of the government in Gabon, and you do not go to Gabon. And Bob Marley, who was with the Rastafari brothers and sisters, understood clearly, and he spent all of his resources and to write songs about how to liberate Zimbabwe and help in the liberation of Southern Africa. So Sahara TV need to go and have a meeting with Beyonce, with Jay-Z, to say to Jay-Z, you are now an entrepreneur. You need to spend some money supporting universities, educational institutions, so do we not have leaders who spend their money on entertainment than on spending water. This is where we have to hone our political and diplomatic skills to be able to isolate our friends from our enemies. And we have to know who our friends are and our enemies, because Beyonce is certainly not an enemy of the African people.
Well, the issue here, Professor, is that Beyonce has been aware of this now for a while. No public statements. When she was confronted with a similar accusation in Libya, she returned the money to a charity. And we had thought that having been aware of this, there could have been some kind of reaction from Beyonce, because there's documentation showing that this man signed poverty alleviation funds for this concert. And that is funny. And now that they are aware, which we are sure they are aware, they ought to make a statement to say, look, we do not support this. And if this is happening, we reject it and make the same move they made in Libya. Give back the money to the people who need it. Maybe they can donate it to the village known as Odi that was wiped out by the military because there was some kind of protest there to start rebuilding the place. I'm just giving that as an example and as a suggestion. Instead of waiting for Sahara TV to come beg them to explain to them, I think they are sufficiently aware at this point of that this is wrong.
I would urge caution, because in our day in Tanzania, there are many things that the Tanzanian government was doing wrong. But we had to make a calculation that we could not fight on all fronts at the same time. We could not fight the Tanzanian government and fight the apartheid government. So we maintained very good relations with the Tanzanian government. We told them what we disagreed with, but we collaborated with them. Your enemy in the United States is not Beyonce. It is the United States Africa Command, the oil companies, and the Central Intelligence Agency, and those who support the jihadists in the north, and those who have big bank accounts. It is not Beyonce and Jay-Z. Your job and the job of progressive Nigeria is to quietly do the diplomatic work to see how this could be resolved, because as they say, there's a difference between differences among friends and differences among enemies.
Well, Professor, thank you so much for coming on our show once again, and we appreciate your perspectives and this very deep philosophical and ideological thinking behind why Africa is the way it is today. And we always enjoy having you, and we hope you continue to come back. And we will not forget to remind people that your book is coming out very soon. What's the exact date of the release of the book, so that they can hear from the horse's mouth?
I'm hoping that I will send a link to Sahara TV. As soon as we have the exact date, we will let you know. The urgency of getting in touch with information about Mali, that we no longer speak about Christians and Muslims and tribalism and division, that we talk about peace and reconstruction. This is so urgent, and my book is talking about the need to forge African unity in the 21st century. And we're going to shock the world. They will not be able to maintain their presence in Mali, because we're going to do the work inside of the United States of America to make sure the Africa Command is dismantled.
Thank you so much, Professor
Thank you very much for
Horace
inviting me.
Campbell. Viewers, it's been Horace Campbell. Always amazing, great insight into African issues. And this is the end of another segment, and we hope that you hang around and just wait for more, because we have a lot more coming your way on Sahara TV Live out of New York City. Don't go away.